10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Welcome back to 10 Steps Further. Jack and I are here with an old friend at this point, right?
Oh, yeah. He's with one of the friends of the show now.
Yes. Todd Durkin, this is his third time on with us. One of our favorites and one of the listener favorites. I hear a lot. Oh, I love that. I told you last time. I love that workout guy that you had. That's what they called you.
I'm the workout guy, huh?
The workout guy. Oh, so good. So Todd's back. What's our topic today?
Our topic is Todd's favorite topic. In fact, from the first time he ever came on, Jonathan and I will say this to each other. Like, we'll drop it during podcasts, right? Yep. Like, we'll be talking about something, and then we'll say to each other, "Get your mind right."
Yeah.
And we drop into Todd Durkin voice, too.
Right, love it.
Get your mind right.
You got to have the right voice. Get your mind right. Get your mind right.
So good.
And this is something that you'll yell at people when they're in your gym, when they're not pushing enough weight. But it's become bigger than that, right?
Oh, it's way bigger than just that.
It's way bigger than that. In fact, it's going to become a book. You're working on the book. What chapter are you working on right now?
I'm on chapter 5 right now.
Okay, that's great. I'm excited. It's going to come out hopefully 2020.
Oh, it will come out 2020.
It will come.
I got to get my mind right to get people's minds right. So it will come out 2020. I'm actually just probably about 6 weeks away from being done with it. I'm actually plowing through it right now. But in the publisher I'm working with, the way it works in the book world is you have to get the manuscript done, and then there's a whole lead-up time. It could be 6 to 12 months before it comes out. So right now I'm pouring my energy and effort into this project of Get Your Mind Right. And it's way bigger than just getting your mind right, but ultimately it comes down to getting your body right, getting your mind right, and getting your soul right too.
So I guess if I would have said to him, is it going to come out in 2020? He says, well, I don't know, maybe. Who would read the book from a guy like that, right? You have to be positive if you're going to do that.
It will.
Well, after you get a lot of great wisdom from Jonathan and I on this 10 Steps podcast, you'll just go home. We're basically going to finish your book for you today.
Yeah,
I like that.
Right here, right now. You're going to get everything you need.
Hey, before we move on, though, Todd, tell us a little bit about what you do. And I love getting caught up with what's going on in your life.
Well, there's several different hats I wear, and I think those listeners today, we wear several different hats. First and foremost, I'm a father and a husband, and that's an important hat that sometimes it gets neglected if you just work all the time. And I love work. I own Fitness Quest 10 here in San Diego, and I have the opportunity through Fitness Quest 10 and some of my alliances and sponsors. I do quite a bit of traveling, speaking at fitness conferences, live events. I'm doing a lot of speaking and keynoting around the country right now. So between speaking, writing, leading my team of 42 employees at Fitness Quest 10, and being a father and a husband, those are my primary 5 roles. I always ask people what most moves your soul, and those are the 5 things that move my soul. That's what fires me up early in the morning to get up and make a difference. I'm all about impact of like, hey, what can I do to inspire one person today to just be more in their life and to live a divine purpose, and whatever God has planned for you, we got to tap into that. And one of the things that I often talk about is how fear often robs us of our best self, and how do we attack that fear? How do we not run from that fear? So today I hope that this podcast inspires some folks to not only have a great day, but to start to run at their fears and live a deeper purpose in all that they're doing.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So we're going to get to this place, and I have some things to talk about how you can choose your mindset, and the mindset you choose can depend where you're going. In fact, you can actually change brain chemistry by choosing the right mindset in our lives. But and we'll get into all of that. But fear is going to be on that list, and I don't want to miss this opportunity. How does fear keep somebody from reaching their fullest potential? And the way I would consider somebody's fullest potential is you're a trainer, but there's another guy who's an accountant and a husband, and there's another person who's going to be a stay-at-home mom, and they're just trying to reach their own potential. But how can fear sneak in and steal that?
Well, check this stat out. There are about 60,000 thoughts in a day. The average person has 60,000 thoughts in a day. 98% of those thoughts are the same thoughts as yesterday. And out of those thoughts, 80% of those thoughts are negative. So think about that. You have 60,000 thoughts a day, 80% are negative, and 98% of them are the same what you had yesterday. So to me, it's like, well, how do you change your thought process if most of what you're thinking about you're scared of the outcome? Maybe it's fear of failure. Maybe it's fear of success. I know a lot of people that are fearful of what if I reach a certain level and how that's going to change life, because people are fearful of change. So to me, it's like, how do you rewire your brain? How do you tap into that so that you can literally choose of running at the fear? So that's what I'm always after, whether it be in the gym, whether it be working with clients, if I'm doing a speaking event, if I'm working with some of the trainers and fit pros I coach. It's like, hey, listen, we've got to go deep inside of ourselves and trust the gifts that we've been blessed with, and we have to run at that. Fear stands for either false expectations appearing real or face everything and rise. And to me, it's like you got to attack the fears. And I know I talk about this all the time, but it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it.
Right.
So you got to run at your fears.
Yeah, you got people who have the same fear since junior high. Somebody said something about them in junior high. Or the parents that they grew up with, they said, oh, you'll never amount to this. And those things can just repeat in our minds.
That's right.
Right? And I can promise you one of the things that said over and over in the Bible, this is Pastor Jack speaking now, is God says, don't fear.
Right.
You just look at the story when Jesus came. To Joseph, don't fear. To Mary, don't fear. Just over and over and over. And then Jesus comes and he says, don't fear.
Right.
You know, there's a storm on the lake. Don't fear. I got it. So I don't think any of that fear kind of stuff, it ain't coming from God.
Philippians 2, 1-8. I denounce selfish and toxic thinking today. So how do you denounce selfish and toxic thinking? I talk stinking thinking. How do you release stinking thinking? Because if we wire our brain, and even middle school kids that are fearful of like not fitting in with the crowd.
Right.
That's scary for 13, 14-year-old boy or girl not fitting in today's day of social media.
Right.
Like
Right.
regardless of the age, right? I'm in my 40s and social media
Right.
is popular for me. It's like people are fearful of what are they going to think of me if I share this?
Right.
And what happens is people start comparing themselves to what they see on social media. And my point is always this: don't compare your insides with someone else's outsides. Because that's dangerous. That's scary by itself. So
Yeah.
don't compare what's on the inside of you to someone else's outside.
That sounds like a message from Pastor Todd Durkin.
Right.
Right, but you're right, man. We look at our lowlights. We know our lowlights.
That's right.
Right.
But people aren't posting their lowlights. They're posting their highlights.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right?
I've got one of my athletes this weekend fighting for the lightweight championship of the world. He has the belt right now in the Bellator, Mike Chandler. And Mike, this is an awesome thing that he has done. He creates a human highlight reel of himself doing his thing in the octagon. So when he's in the cage, he only sees himself with the perfect performance. Most people start to have this low light reel. They see themselves making the mistakes they've made in their life. And maybe it's relationships, maybe it's finances, maybe it's in their career, maybe they're stuck, they're stale, they're stagnated, they're frustrated, and they just keep beating themselves up. Versus WLWL, when life was working best, like when life works list, when life was working best, what were you doing? See yourself, visualize yourself. The power of visualization is really important in seeing yourself perform at your highest level. And not just physical performance, but even your mindset performance. When were you feeling your best? When were you vibrant? When did you just feel with radiant light? You felt like, wow, like, man, it's great to be alive.
Right.
So
Okay, let me challenge you just for a second, all right? Because when we're sitting here and when we're in the office with Todd Durkin on 10 Steps Further, and he's traveling the world, right? And he's writing a book. Not everybody's going to do that. And there are people that will look at you and they'll go, man, I'm just not going to do that. So how do you challenge that person, that stay-at-home mom, to be her best self? Or that guy who's going to be an accountant? Nobody's ever nobody's ever asking this accountant guy to speak anywhere, right? So how do you challenge those people?
It's all about habit. It's all about creating habits in your life and best practices that will allow you to do what you want to do.
Right.
So I often talk about reverse engineer the success that you desire. And that success that you desire should be based on what is God's plan for you. Now, that takes some soul searching. That takes writing down what I call your annual roadmap. But when you reverse engineer your success and you put down on paper what you desire, and maybe it's you want to purchase a condo or a house someday, or you want to buy a car, or you want to be part of a certain business, whatever it may be, you have to reverse engineer that, and then you have to set up habits, daily habits, that will allow you to ultimately, over time, as you put deposits in the bank every single day. So people are like, hey, do you wake up and you're fired up every morning? No, I am not. It's habits that allow me to go to my gym 5 a.m. and it sometimes takes me 2 hours to get my mind right. And all of a sudden, I'm like, all right, let's roll. We got to rock and roll. Like just last night, I mean, I'm speaking right now on about 4 hours sleep. I landed at 1 a.m. in the morning, and I had to be up at 6 a.m.
Last time he was here, he just got back from Russia. So
right, but like, and I'm not condoning like don't get sleep because sleep's important. But here's the thing, like there are times in life when you've got to make sure when it's not easy that you're a creature of habit, and if you don't like where your life is at, well, how can you change what's not working? Are the people in your life bringing out the best in you? Right. Are your habits of what you're eating, or are you training? Are you exercising? I mean, are you getting out and doing a walk? Oh, Todd, I don't want to train with the intensity that you do. Well, it's all relative. It's getting out and moving and making the commitment, because after all, if you want to change the position in your life and what you do and ultimately your happiness and your harmony, then it's going to require some habits that are going to have to happen.
Yeah. So here's what I would tell people. Here's how I'd answer that question. Not everybody's going to be Todd Durkin. Right. Not everybody's called to be Todd Durkin. We got one. Right. We got a pretty good one. Right. He's a pretty good Todd Durkin. But you can't be that. Right. Really, what we're asking people to do, or what I challenge you got an audience of one. And when you find out what it is that God wants you to do, and you pour into that one area that you're supposed to do, it could be working with autistic kids. It could be raising your own kids. Right. It could be, you work in an accounting firm. Well, that's one thing, but there are people in your accounting firm that you can reach out and make a difference in their life. Right. That, to me, that's the goal, because if everybody has to notice, you're always going to want more people to notice. Right? But if you can go, look, man, this is what you want me to do, God. It's finding that inside joy that comes from knowing that you're God's favored, doing just what you're doing.
Right. Sometimes that can be the hardest thing, is just like you said, you just get out a piece of paper and you're just like, God, what did you make me to do? Like that's the hardest part of the whole journey, is to oftentimes just identify the direction can be the hardest thing for a lot of people. And I know for me, that's, I get a new idea every hour. And it's like, a fire truck went by. I really want to be a firefighter with my, like you just get these ideas. And so, but having clarity. And Steve Jobs says that focus is about saying no. It's not as much about saying yes. It's like recognizing when you're going in one direction, that means there's a million directions you're not going in, right? I mean, I'm going this way. This is the thing that I'm made to do. This is the thing that decides if I'm going to do the other things. And so getting that clarity, I think most people never take the minute to sit down, the hours that it takes to sit down with the paper out and get clarity.
If you can get hours, fantastic. But how about 2 minutes? Yeah. I call it the 2-minute drill. I often say that good players can speed a game up and great ones can slow it down. Can you slow life down? Take 2 minutes out in the morning and the evening to write on paper your thoughts. Now, here's how it goes deeper. Here's how it goes deeper is, what's the difference between prayer? Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Getting all choked up.
Todd's about to cry. So this is a really important point to him.
Yeah. Here's the deal is with what's the difference between prayer and meditation? People often ask, what's the difference between prayer and meditation? To me, praying is when you're talking to God, and meditation is when you're listening. And the real power is when you're listening, because typically when you can quiet down your mind and listen in, and you can tap into your whispers, I think that's where your profound wisdom is. Right. So ultimately it comes down to how do you tap into those whispers? Right. And it takes discipline. Right. It takes writing on paper. It is said that writing creates clarity, clarity precedes genius. Well, do you have the discipline to sit your tail down, get some butt glue, and sit your tail down and just write for 2 minutes? Slow things down, get clarity. It reduces anxiety. Right. Your parasympathetic nervous system taps in. What's that? That's when your blood pressure, your heart rate all slows down. By you tapping in physiologically and as well as even spiritually, you're tapping in. You're slowing things down. So how do you slow things down so that you can speed things up?
We've said this before. The reality is your life's too loud.
Right.
Right? Right. There's too many voices. There's too much stuff to watch, too many things to listen to, too many things to check, too many responsibilities that we have. And so taking that moment, what I challenge people is I really believe that God will speak to you in whispers, and he'll speak to you as you're going through your life, but your life's too loud.
Right.
You know, you can't go on a run without having earbuds. You can't get in the car without turning on the radio. You can't get home. I've noticed this about me. I can't eat a meal if I'm by myself without watching SportsCenter, right? But I do believe that God wants to speak to us, and it's those moments of quiet.
Right.
Okay, so I want to talk about mindset for a second, all right? Attitude can make a difference, huge difference. There's a line from Hamlet that says this: there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It's the mindset that we choose. The Bible puts it like this: summing it all up, friends, I'll say to you, you'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not things to curse. So they did some studies on this, how our mind, just choosing the right mindset, having a different mindset changes the way things work in your life. Let me give you an example. Check this out. A large percentage of people who are given what they think is a well-known brand for a headache, like Advil or Bayer, versus a generic pill, report more pain relief from the big brand pill.
Yep.
Doctors and and pharmacists go nuts when they hear that because it can't be. Advil's the same, right? Bayer's the same. The molecular structures are identical and the active ingredients are the same. And don't look for an answer in the sugar coatings.
Right.
People take it thinking if it's the name brand, that it's going to work better. And you know what? It actually does.
Yep.
Okay, let me give you another one.
That's one of
the
my
most
favorite things.
sophisticated wine drinkers can be influenced by the price of a wine. An expert opening a bottle thinks he's got a hard-to-get $200 Domaine de Chevier, but I think that's how to say it. But I'm just making it up.
Speaks French.
Yeah, he'll almost always find it tastier than if the label says house wine. They did a study on this, and they found that some of the connoisseurs who's got the wine with a cheap label thought it was worth drinking, but 3 times as many approved when it had a fancy label.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, all the opinions about oaky, earthy, silky, and structured are affected by labels as much as taste buds.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's mindset.
Right.
Spent a lot of time talking about mindset.
Well, here's the bottom line with mindset. You might be like, yeah, Todd, it makes sense, and Pastor John, that makes sense, but how do I really change my mindset? I would say this, and this is Coach Todd talking, like if you want to truly change your mind, it's not just positive affirmations and mantras, although those do help. It's like, listen, number one, you do have to exercise. Yeah. It's a bottom line. You have to train because there's too much stress in the world, and I believe that when you exercise, physiologically, what happens is there is a hormonal response that happens that gets your mind right. So that's number one. You do have to do that. That's what I call, you get a dose. Not a dose of Durkin, you get a dose. That means dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins are released when you exercise. And those, like, endorphins are 10 times more powerful than morphine. So when you exercise, and I'm talking even going out for a 30-minute brisk walk, that's going to literally help you get your mind right and help you think more positively. If you couple that training session along with, now you start to put in some gratitude time, some prayer time. Now all of a sudden you're both basically you're stoking your physical and your spiritual. That gets your mind right. And guess what? This is an everyday thing. It's not a once a day thing or a once a week thing. It's every single day. You have to do that. And it's not just once. It's every single day. And if your mind isn't right, there has to be some literally snap that is going to trigger the whole repatterning of your mind because you're patterned to think a certain way. And you have to snap that pattern. So through exercise, through reading the right inspirational material, through listening to folks like you, Pastor Jack, with great messages and podcasts, like literally every single day, who you surround yourself with, all of these things help you think more positively. So all of that counts. Everything counts. And if there's areas of your life where you're not training, you're not eating right because, again, there's a hormonal response to what you're eating, that comes down to habit. And ultimately, it's a choice. Right. You're choosing. Are you exercising? Are you eating the right foods or not? Are you hanging out with the right people? Are you attending church? Are you listening to positive messages or not?
Right.
Because most people waste way too much time in a day. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to listen to podcasts. And I would say, yes, you do.
Right.
It's how you allocate your time so you can increase your energy.
Right.
Jonathan, you speaking your language, buddy.
Well, I was just in Galatians this morning with a group of people, and we were in Galatians chapter 6, where Paul basically he just starts unpacking the whole principle of reaping and sowing. And he's just like, don't be deceived. God is not mocked. Everything you sow, you will reap, good or bad. Of the flesh to destruction, of the spirit to eternal life. And it's this amazing principle because, like, just unpacking it as we were doing this morning, the whole discussion just being on every single thing you do. Everything you eat, everything you listen to, everything you watch, everything you say is a seed planted that will bear fruit of some kind.
Yes. You will have – every life has fruit.
Yeah.
Every life has fruit.
Right.
It's just what kind of fruit, right?
Yeah, and I think if you pay attention in the moment, I think a lot of us, we don't pay attention, but if you pay attention, you will be able to discover what you'll be able to, in a sense, feel it, because you can feel those chemical changes going on in your body in the moment.
Literally.
You can feel it. So when you're working out, you feel something different. When you smoke a cigarette, you feel something different. When you eat a salad, you feel something different. So I think there's like, if we pay attention to that, we'll realize the life that we're building down the road, or the life that we're destroying in the moment.
And those are choices and habits, choices and habits. And if you don't like where you're at, then that's why people hire coaches. That's why people go to church, because they're listening to spiritual wisdom.
Right.
My challenge to anyone listening today, and it's something I've been really reading a lot about, is it's being a light in the universe. How do you be a light in the universe? Matthew 6. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? If then the light within you is bright, how great is that light? How do you be the light? How do you be the light? You don't have to be a coach or a trainer to be the light. You don't have to be a pastor to be the light. Any single person can choose to be the light in middle school, in high school, at their workplace. If they have a job at a fast food place, the Uber driver, the flight attendant, all has the opportunity to be the light. But that light, it takes work and diligence on yourself, and that should never stop. But again, it's discipline, it's work, and it's a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this thought in my head. I just want to bring it up. It's maybe random. It's like, just in this context, I've noticed something about you. I have this other friend. He's a pastor friend, Toby, and I've noticed something about him as well. Is even in his humor, he is careful. In his in his humor, and I feel like we've only had this is the third time hanging with you, but it just seems like even still careful in your humor, careful not to tear yourself down, careful not to tear other people down, even in your humor. Is that something that you're conscious of, something that you do? Because I know for me, a lot of times certain friends we'll take jabs at each other, but it's all in good fun. Jack and I will go back and forth even on the podcast.
Right.
But at the same time, I have seen people who will, I don't know, it's almost like a deflection of some kind. They're speaking real truth about their own weaknesses, and they're putting it out there, almost as if to not have to deal with some things.
I would say this. I read a book once called The Four Agreements, and it was number 1, be impeccable with your word.
Okay.
So I am very careful with my words, because I want to make sure what comes out of my mouth is spoken because of my thoughts.
Right.
Remember this: your thoughts become your words become your flesh become your actions become your character becomes your legacy, all starting with thought. So for me, I want to make sure I'm saying things that are only going to elicit a higher state of mind and frequency. So I would say this: if someone's gossiping to you, they'll gossip about you.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't gossip. Yeah. So I don't gossip. I'm too busy and too focused on what I need to do to get things done versus, hey, it's easy to find what's wrong with people. Because everyone, including myself, have things wrong. But it's like you get held up on what's wrong with people, and you hold grudges and everything else. I know for me personally, and most other people out there, there's way too many more important things to do than hold grudges on that stuff.
Well, and what you're saying is it's not just what comes out. Right? Because you can think, well, I'm not going to say anything mean about anybody. Right. And I'll just be really disciplined about that. Right. But it's too late at that point. Because if you're thinking it, if your mind goes goes to, wow, that guy, man, he's always this way. And,
Right.
you know, one of the things that I've heard, and I say over and over and over to people in their marriage, is what makes a marriage work is when I believe in my wife more than she believes in herself. And I know she believes in me more than I believe in me.
Right.
And so she's always looking for the positive in my life. So what comes out, she doesn't really have to be that careful. And even if we're joking with each other, she doesn't have to be that careful because she loves me.
Right.
And I know it.
Right.
Yep. And I would say this too, Jonathan, is I used to be much more guarded with what I said.
Right.
When I'm on stage now, like I'm just being me. And
Yeah.
I don't hold back my thoughts or my words because I know what's going in my head. I know what's my
Right.
input is coming in. What I listen to,
Right.
the music, the TV,
Right.
I know what I'm listening to, and it's gonna hopefully enrich my
Oh,
mindset.
that's good. Yeah.
A few years ago, I had the opportunity to be on Pastor Joel Osteen's podcast, Sirius XM show, and he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Until you have haters, you haven't made it."
Right.
I was like, "That's an interesting way to
Wow.
think about it."
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yep.
no one wants haters. I don't
Right.
want haters. I was always, when I was younger, trying to please everybody.
Yeah.
And as you get a little bit, a little wiser, more experienced on the
Sure.
block, you realize the more outspoken you are, the more genuine you are to yourself,
Right.
you're unfortunately going to rub people the wrong way.
Right.
Because not everyone loves who you are.
Yeah.
So that was powerful words to me back then. And
That sounds good. Like it sounds better coming out of Joel Osteen.
Right.
yeah.
Right? Like here's the way I put it, and I'm sure Joel will say it better. If you try to make a difference in people's life, if you try to lead them, if you try to love them, if you try to make an impact on the world, somebody somewhere thinks you're doing it wrong.
100%.
Somebody somewhere thinks you're an idiot. There is somebody somewhere going, "Oh man,
How you can do it better."
That Mother Teresa, what a witch she was." Right? There's always that.
I saw Justin Bieber was on like Jimmy Fallon or something. He had just dropped an album.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Fallon's like, "Man, this thing is selling." Like just talking it up. And Bieber said it is the most disliked song in iTunes history. Like it was like
Probably the best-selling one, too.
right. He had done, you know, he's just gotten in front of so many
right.
people that
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's a tough one for people to get over.
100%.
Because we just have those echoes and we wonder. And these people might not even be thinking about it, or they probably thought something bad about you and they moved on from you. But
Yeah.
we let it sit.
Yeah.
So reprogramming our mind. That's one of the things we'll say at church.
Right.
Or one of the things that reading our Bible does. It just reprograms what you're getting.
That's right.
Right? Okay, so are there any other words out there? We talked about fear as one way to reset your mind. Is there another word out there, Todd, that you want to throw out there, or Jonathan, that to get your mind right? What is that? What is one of those words?
I think for me, a lot of this stuff is just kind of practical. I mean, he's bringing up half my list of just go for a walk, make a list. What I even had this just rest, take a break, take a nap.
Right.
Just set aside a moment and just like for me, like sometimes it'll be just a reset. I'll be overwhelmed with something. It's like, okay, I'm gonna lay down for 20 minutes, and this is what I'm gonna do when I get up. And it's just like a reset. It's just like a fresh start.
So we need to know if Todd Durkin takes naps.
Yeah.
I took a great nap on that plane last night. I'll tell you that much. There's nothing wrong with a good cat nap every now and then. 20
Right.
minutes.
I can go
is
20. That's about
I
it.
can go an hour and a half.
And I'll
but
tell
that's-
you, about 50 feet over is my office, and those doors will close. If my doors are closed, don't knock.
Right.
I love it. I love
Taking
it.
a nap, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
How about the word gratitude? Let me throw that out.
Well, gratitude is something that it's one of the most powerful words I know I think about, because gratitude is something most people can be better at, including myself. The human mind often thinks about what next. People always ask me, "What's next, Todd? What's next?" Like, how about I just am content with where I'm at and being where my feet are at, and being thankful for what's in my life and who's in my life. The high performers or the type A personalities is often like, what's next, or how do you do better in business or in life or your physicality. Gratitude is something that I find both in the morning and in the evening, when you can spend time in gratitude, finding and reflecting upon what's in your life and who's in your life. It recalibrates your mindset. It recalibrates. A good way to think about things when bad things happen, right, is someone always has it worse than me. I always say when something bad happens, it's like someone out there has got it worse than me. And sometimes it's a bad thing and sometimes not, but there's always someone with it worse, and that God wouldn't give you anything that you can't handle. So it's constantly realizing that you are way stronger than you think. And sometimes you don't know how strong you are until strong is literally all you have left.
You know, I would challenge you on this one statement, all right? I disagreed with something that you said.
Preach it. Preach it.
I hope it's not going to become the octagon.
Let's argue.
It will not
Let's
become
do
the
it.
octagon. I don't believe that God won't give you something too big for you to handle. In fact, I believe that the bigness of it is what drives you to him. He can give you something that's too big for you to handle, but not for you and him together to handle.
I agree with that. There's the old footprints quote. You know,
you want to read the poem?
No, but it's in my head because you think about. I do think that sometimes you think that, man, why would God do this to me? Right?
There's an angry feeling of
Absolutely.
like, this is wrong that you did this to me.
And I've got clients as we speak right now battling some pretty tough stuff personally, and that's the question that they ask me as their mentor and coach about that. And we were literally talking about that footprints the other day about, hey, there's two sets of footprints, and then all of a sudden something bad happened. There's only one set of footprints, and that one set. Was God's footprints carrying you through that difficult time.
Isn't this gym, this fitness center, this worldwide speaking tour, didn't all this start with a back injury?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
This wasn't your plan, man. You wanted to be in the NFL. You wanted to be quarterback. And it ended.
Life threw a curveball.
That's right.
And when your dreams are shattered, sometimes that's when your deepest dreams are created and discovered. But no one wants to go through the tough times. It's always in those most difficult times when the greatest opportunities are present. But that also forces you to make sure that you don't resent God for the bad things that happen. It's really about tapping into what is this situation allowing me to do to go deeper, and how can I listen more and be more obedient and be more faithful? Because that's the hard part. How do you be faithful to God when something bad happens? For me, it was at that point in my life, a debilitating back injury just a couple years after my father had passed away. I was just 20 years old. Life threw some curveballs in my life then. Looking back now as a father and as a husband and what I do, who I am today is very much a part of when I was 25, how that back injury changed my life.
Yeah. I always said this about maybe this is arrogant. I always said, I was always a good speaker, but the thing I lacked early in ministry was content. Right? Whatever I said, I could say and people would enjoy it.
That's funny. Right.
You know what? The hard times create content. They give me the conversation I can have with my kid. They give me the conversation when somebody's sitting with me over coffee and their life is falling apart. When somebody sits down and says, man, my dad's an alcoholic, I go, yep, been there. This is what I did. Some of the conversation, the content comes from sitting in a counselor's office. And when you are sitting down with athletes and world-class athletes and LT and Drew Brees, the content comes from the hard time, right?
That's right. And I would say when you're going through tough times, and this is the hard part, is to put it on paper, is to write it down in journal or to type it up on your computer, because I think it's cathartic to release that emotion out. And I think when you do that, it allows you to release any pain that you may be feeling, which also when you turn to prayer and you continually get into a habit of praying through difficult times as well, is to really ask God of how is this drawing me closer to you? That's difficult to do. That's difficult to do, but I believe when you do that in the difficult times, when you look back, and it could be in 6 months, it could be in a year, or even a few years down the line, you can see how that episode or that situation actually allowed you to grow deeper in your relationship with Christ.
Well, what we're asking people is not that they get through it. We're not saying that. What we're saying is when you go through that most difficult time, be grateful for it. Man.
But there you go.
That's graduate level.
But that's a reshift of the mindset.
Right.
That's reshifting the mindset. And that's a choice to say that. No one's like, thank God I'm going through this tough time.
Right.
But what you're saying is, how do you reshift your mindset to find gratitude in the tough times?
So if you look backwards, you can say that difficulty built this in me. That hard time built perseverance in me. That thing grew me, looking back. So what you're trying to do is in this moment, look forward and going, I know that when I'm looking in my rearview mirror.
That's right.
That this happened for a reason.
Isn't life kind of about solving problems? I mean, like when you think about everything we do, I mean, the reason why any of us has a job doing anything, whether it's us or the listener out there, your job is to solve a problem. You know, and if there are no problems, there's no real victory. There's no drive. There's no purpose. Like, I mean, whether it's a health problem or a mindset problem or a spiritual problem or the person's marriage is falling apart or somebody isn't good at numbers, so they need to hire an accountant, you know, or somebody's building isn't clean, they need to hire somebody to clean it. Like, just all of these things, it really is about solving problems. And there's almost something about like when we can take victory in overcoming, then we can be grateful for the problems, right? I mean, we just create problems. That's what sports is, right? Like we just like, okay, here's a team, they're building up, here's us, we're building up, and we're going to go against each other, and the problem is that team. And now we're
right.
Because we're built for it. It's like the drama of life. We're created for it, and there's something we can find. I think we can find joy in it, even in trial. We can find joy in it when we understand like this is what we're here for.
Well, the Bible says it. I don't know that I get it fully, but it says, count it joy when you encounter trials.
Yeah.
Because it will produce endurance.
Right.
And
maturity.
most people listening in right now are probably battling something.
Something,
right?
Everybody.
So I think sometimes you think it's only me that's got this challenge.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you have to have the mentality, get your mind right, the mentality to say, battle. I'm going to get through this. Yeah. A sign of strength is actually reaching out when you're battling something, whether it be addiction, a physical diagnosis, a challenge, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, to actually reach out to whether it be a dear friend, a pastor, a coach, a therapist, whoever it may be, and say, hey, I'm struggling here.
Right.
That's a sign of strength.
Right.
To do that is most people rely on their own strength and they drown. It's like putting a rope around your neck and you die. So my challenge is to continue the mindset of continue to battle, but to lean on the people who's in your inner circle, the closest people, and to be honest and vulnerable and transparent and say, man, I'm hurting. I'm tired. I'm down. I need some help. Right. And I think that's where you rely on those closest to you to hold you accountable. Because when we talk about iron sharpens iron, again, one of my favorite verses, iron sharpens iron, is like it's our inner circle that must hold us accountable for what we're doing or what we're not doing. Right. And if you're not doing what you should be doing, even in times of difficulty, then iron needs to sharpen you up.
Right. That's good.
Okay, I got a question for you, buddy. Last time you wandered in here, you limped in here, right? And you now have a bionic knee.
Man, I'm jumping in here now. Hey, you talk about getting your mind right, and this is actually a good example. When you're in physical pain, it actually drains your mindset. Oh, yeah. It drains your energy. Yeah. Like, it can get you down. And for 3 years, I was in physical pain. My knee was in pain. And I have the battle mindset of like, hey, I can get through this. I can get through this. And I am so grateful, to bring up gratitude again, so grateful that in November 2018, I had a partial knee replacement because my mindset was, I'm too young for that. I'm too young. I'll wait until a certain age. That was the wrong mindset because what I realize now, 5 months later, man, I am feeling like $1 million. My physical health is back. I can do the things I want to do. I don't hurt all the time. Right. And when you're in physical pain, it affects you. And you really have to go deep on like your spiritual side or, your mental side. Like now, if your physical, your mental, and your spiritual are all congruent and in harmony, then your energy could be really flowing. So for me, despite there's like in a sea of darkness out there and battling, I find that like I got to protect my inside. Right. I gotta make sure I get my workouts in every day. I gotta get my prayer time in because like, to whom much is given, much is required. I feel like that God is calling me to do some greater things that are even scary for me, like to even share my faith vulnerably outward with what I do, with all that I'm doing. God's calling me to another level, and some people are like, oh no, you've got a lot of the stuff, great things you're doing. Hey, listen, I'm not content with where I'm at. Like, there's a lot of things and a lot of people I need to reach. There's millions of people in this country, let alone in this world, that need more light. And to me, that's my ministry, is getting out there and preaching, body, mind, and spirit, and get your mind right. So that's where I'm at these days, and I can't wait to just continue my own physical prowess too.
Yeah,
right?
man, I know. It's nice. See you run in here. I'm going to have him carry me to my car when we're done. Just to prove it.
That'll benefit both of you. Like that.
Okay, I got another word to get your mind right. Resilience, grit, determination. How does that strike you, Jonathan?
Oh man, I guess it's funny. NBA playoffs are going on right now, so
Yes.
I keep hearing that word. Like
Right.
the team gets demolished, and they're like, "This is a resilient
Okay,
team."
here's a pet peeve, right?
Okay.
They must want it more than the other
Right.
team. Like if an announcer can't say so, they must want it more. It doesn't have anything to do with coaching or anything.
No,
but there
yeah.
is determination to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that like that's the whole theme of the Rocky movies? How many times can you get knocked down and just keep getting back up?
Right.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you just own that as like this is who I am. I might get knocked down my whole life, but I will never stop getting back up. You're going to win. You cannot not win if that's who you are.
Man, Johnny, you're still
Right?
my thunder. It's Rocky, man. I'm the self-professed, watch more Rockies than anyone in the world.
Right.
But I love the word
I
grit.
think I asked you this. Can you do Rocky?
I can. Which
Come on,
which
man.
one?
Just do it. Just I need your best impersonation.
Yeah. He knows every line. So give it.
Before we go there, you mentioned the word grit. That word gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Because I hear the word grit. That's something that I try to instill in my kids and the athletes I work with
Right.
is grit, because in a world that often does not understand delayed gratification and the work ethic and the tenacity it takes to be successful, grit is the word that comes to mind about the spirit, the fervor, the energy that it takes is that grit. I'm a big fan also of The Rock, not just Rocky, but The Rock,
right.
hardest worker in the room.
Yeah.
He travels with a gym, he sets it up, and it's, whether it's 3 a.m. or whatever time, like he's going to get his workouts in, and grit is a word that if we can instill that regardless of age, whether you're a grandma, grandpa, mom or dad, or a kid, if you can learn the toughness, the mentality, the mental toughness, the grit that it takes, not only in the good times, but in the bad times, because unfortunately, a lot of times the good times are only going to last 10% of the time, and the rest of the time you're battling something, or you're climbing the mountain, right? On that stuff. So grit is just a word that resonates deeply. There's a great book on grit, and man, I love that word.
Yeah, there's a book called The Resiliency Advantage that talks about how grit makes a difference. He says this: highly resistant people are flexible, adapt to new circumstances, quickly thrive in constant change. They have a knack for creating good luck out of circumstances that many others see as bad luck. Let me read you a story, all right? Victoria was driving home from a niece's piano recital one evening in 2004 when a large object smashed through a windshield, hitting with such force that it broke every bone in her face. The object turned out to be a frozen turkey. A teenage boy out for a joyride with friends in a stolen car threw it out the window and it hit her. After being rushed out to the hospital, she remained in an induced coma for 2 weeks. When it was safe to operate, the doctors began putting her face back together. But that wasn't her prediction. She was ready. They told her that she would have permanent brain damage, but she wasn't willing to accept it. She had survived tragedies before. 2 of her brothers died in separate incidences when she was a teenager. Age 35, she miscarried a much longed-for child. Somehow she found the strength to come through those losses. She was determined that she would make it through this too. With a devastated face, a questionable future ahead of her, she had plenty of good reasons to sink into anger and depression, but she didn't. Instead, even as she was undergoing a series of reconstructive surgeries, she told herself, "This moping isn't going to get me anywhere." And she turned her focus to learning more about the boy responsible for the ordeal. She forgave him. She went on with her life. She said to the judge, I couldn't see how locking him up for 25 years was really going to help him. The judge agreed, and he was sentenced to 6 months in jail and 5 years of probation. Now, this is what she's done with her life. She now speaks to at-risk youths on how to improve their life because she had the grit and determination to overlook her situation. Can you imagine it? Frozen turkey.
No.
Wow.
I think when I think of grit and I think of just that, I just think of keeping coming, keep going over and over and over again, like the long-term mindset. We live in a time now that everything, I mean, like being an entrepreneur is like the sexy thing to do, and it's everywhere. But yet the people who make it work are not the people who strike gold. They're the people who just keep going.
Yeah.
Day in, day out. Like what's wild about like that world of like starting your own business, doing your own company, that kind of thing, is it seems like the reason why a lot of people want to do it is because they want to work as little as possible. and it's like you can't do anything if you work as like you can't make it if you work as little as possible. And then you look at somebody like Todd who's run his own ship, you know, he's got his thing going. And here's a guy, he works hard, man. He's up early in the morning, he's working out. Every single person who's like that.
I have to.
Yeah. Todd, would you agree with this statement? I've heard it said about people who start their own business that you have complete freedom to work whatever 96 hours a week you want.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, but I just really feel like, you know, it's that long-term mindset of just like we're I mean, the big thing is you got to latch onto that purpose, that calling. But then once you've got it, it's just like, yeah, it's going to get tough. It's going to get tough. And then you're going to get through a day, and it's going to be tough tomorrow. And you're going to get through that day, and it's going to be tough. But when you learn to live in the tough, like that's that grit. You just keep coming back every single day. That's health.
Right.
It's all of it.
Right.
So we're just about out of time. So I want to give it over one more time to Pastor Todd. Give us your last parting shot that you want people. And we're going to get that book. And when you get that book, you're definitely going to be on again. You'll speak at our church. We'll put it everywhere. I'm going to buy a bunch of copies of them. I'm going to get one of those wristbands, right? He's got your get your mind right wristband with these snaps whenever he wants to. Okay, so just lay it on us, brother. We're uncensored.
Life ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a mean and nasty place, and it will knock you to your knees if you let it. Me, you, or no one's going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't how hard you get hit. It's about how hard you can get hit, get up, and keep moving forward, because that's how winning is done. There you go.
There's our Rocky right there. Yes. Oh, that's fantastic.
Didn't he say that to his son? Is that what it was?
That's how he said. He said, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. So here's the thing, and when you talk about that, honestly, is in life, there's starters and there's finishers. And one of the things I'm most proud of is being in business for 19 years. Yeah. It's one thing to start a business, another thing to have the persistence, the grit to overcome challenges and adversity through starting a church, starting a business. The longevity on that is grit. Ultimately, it's grit. And no one wants the tough times, but we're all going to be faced with the tough times. Yep. If you're facing a tough time today, get up, keep moving forward. That's the bottom line. It's the truth. Like, you have to keep moving forward. And when you find the good in people, not the bad in people, you got to find the good in people. You have to accentuate the positive, then great things happen. But that's a hard thing. That's a mindset shift of how do you keep finding the positive and not just dwelling on what's wrong with people. Hey, that's something that I'm always working on. We've got 42 employees. Like, you got to just keep finding the gifts in people and accentuating those things. So for me, if you're out there today and if you're walking, you're driving, you're going to school, congratulations for listening to this podcast. Continue to listen to this. Continue to surround yourself with the right people. Continue to do the little things that are necessary to be a starter and to be a finisher as well. And if you dive in deep into yourself, you tap into your gifts, you tap into your whispers, I believe that you will get your mind right, you will get your body right, and you'll get your soul right too.
And you will get
10 steps further.
10 steps further. All right. Hey, buddy, thank you so much for being on here.
Always a pleasure.
Man, I always feel like I want to do push-ups after this.
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. You can find the show notes for this podcast on our website, 10stepsfurther.com. If you'd like to join us for another journey, or if you know someone else who's on this walk, subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. If you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, join our Facebook group by simply searching 10 Steps Further. And if you're ever in San Diego, come visit us at Canyon Springs Church. We'd love to meet you.